Welcome to Be Healthy in a Hurry with Dr. Wayne, the Mango Man Pickering, myself, Betty Norland, and Buddy Lee. And we have got a guest for you guys today that you are going to absolutely love, Michael Stahl.
Well, let me ask you this, but as I read your material, what does the term emotional intelligence really mean, and how does it apply to wellness? Now, that would be interesting. Talk to us a little bit.
When you talk about emotional intelligence, it's really how we manage our own emotions. And it's the degree to which we understand and are aware of our own social interactions and relationships. You can break it down into 4 different areas. When you think about emotional intelligence, you can look at self-awareness and self-management, and then social awareness and relationship management. Really and truly, at the end of the day, emotional intelligence is all about human relations. How do we relate to other people? And in terms of how that relates to wellness, it's very interesting because if we have imbalances in specific areas of our natural tendencies or preferences as related to performance or as related to how we talk to and work with other people, those imbalances can essentially lead to really a lot of what we would call mental health injuries, things like burnout or depression or compassion fatigue, post-traumatic stress. So the better your emotional intelligence is, the more balanced you are in specific areas as related to both performance and communication, the better your overall total wellness is going to be, and really and truly, the more successful you're going to be.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the difference between personality and emotional intelligence. You want to go there?
There's kind of a debate in some circles. They say, well, can you change your personality? And the short answer to that question is no, we cannot change our core personality. Now, the interesting thing is, though, that every human being can choose to change their behavior to yield a different or a more desirable result. And that leads into emotional intelligence because, as we talked about, it's, again, how do we manage our own emotions? How do we communicate with others? How do we manage our relationships? And so that's very exciting. We can be aware of our personality and the personalities of others, and yet although we can't change our personality, we can change our behavior. I'll share an interesting story with you around that. A number of years ago, I was working with a client on the West Coast, and it was a large tech company. I had worked with them for about a half a year at this point. I was back in Orlando at the time where I live, and I got a frantic call from the director of human resources. She was on the phone with me. She's, Michael, I just can't believe this. This is just absolutely terrible. I can't believe this has happened. You got to help me. And she was totally upset and just rambling on. I said, okay, well, first of all, let's talk about what happened. She said, well, our vice president of the NOC, which for a technology company stands for Network Operations Center. That's kind of the beehive for a technology company. It's very important. She said he just recently, the other day, left on a business trip to New York City, and he no sooner got out the door than every single person in his department, every one of them, came to me and let me know that they have their resumes out to other companies and that they were leaving because they said he was the worst manager they had ever had. She's like, Michael, I cannot lose the entire department. Do you realize how much money that would cost in terms of recruitment and hiring and training and orientation? She's like, I just can't possibly do that. I said, well, okay. What about this gentleman you're talking about? She says, oh, no, we can't lose him either because although he's a terrible manager and he has no emotional intelligence whatsoever, he's a technical genius and we have to have his technical expertise. So she's like, well, Michael, what do I do? I said, okay, here's what we'll do. We're going to have him take something called the Harrison assessment. And this is a behavioral traits profile, just as an aside, that I'm a master trainer in. It looks at 12 specific areas of performance and how that relates to results in all areas of your life. And so I said, well, have him take the Harrison, and then I'll engage in a very customized 2-month training program with him. She said, okay, well, that sounds great. So she basically informed him that this was going to happen. And the very first meeting I had with him, I'll never forget this. So I'd never met this man before. At the very first meeting we had, in a very calm way, he said to me, I just want to let you know that I think what you do has absolutely no value whatsoever. I said, well, yeah. I said,
oh, nice guy.
yeah. I said, oh, okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate your honesty and I appreciate your opinion. I said, let's do this. I'll make a deal with you. If you agree to take the Harrison and then you spend 1 hour with me going over your psychological ecosystem and all the data that comes out of that, and then after that hour that you spend with me, if you still think what I do has no value, I will personally speak to the director of HR and make sure that you don't have to do this coaching program. He said, okay. Well, he took the Harrison. We spent an hour together. At the end of that hour, he goes, well, that was very clinical. All right, I agree. So for the next 2 months, we engaged in a very in-depth coaching program specifically based on his balances and imbalances and strengths and opportunities for development. And Dr. Wayne and Betty, let me just tell you about this guy. So the data indicated that he was dogmatic, kind of my way or the highway. He was self-centered. He basically was blunt with all of his communication, and additionally to that, he was harsh. So just a great guy to work with. And lo and behold, Reader's Digest version of the story, at the end of the 2 months, the very last session we had, he actually got very emotional. And I'll tell you what, I didn't think this man had the capacity to feel or show emotion, but he got very emotional. He said, Michael, I want to tell you something. He said, I think of myself as a fairly intelligent guy, but I have to say that I never knew that my poor emotional intelligence was having such a negative impact on everybody that I work with and everybody in every area of my life. And I just want to say thank you. You literally have changed my life. And the rest of the story is this, as Paul Harvey would say. I interviewed every single one of the people that said they were going to leave from his department, and every one of them said that he had gone from the worst manager they'd ever had to the very best manager they have ever experienced, and none of them left. They all stayed. And that is the whole core of emotional intelligence, because the good news is, the exciting news is, the amazing thing is that every single human being on earth can improve their emotional intelligence. They can change their behavior to create more balance and better results in all of their relationships, whether it be at work or at home.
Wow. You know, I've got tears in my eyes listening, just because I know how impactful relationships are and how impactful change is. So I'm going to leave the audience with a quote from Kathleen Spike, who is somebody that's done a lot of coaching. And she said, expect a breakthrough and expect to learn. Michael?
A few months ago, our neighbors, a delightful retired couple, came over and knocked on my wife and I's door. And we opened the door. They were smiling and they had huge handfuls of organic avocados. And they asked us if we wanted them. We said, sure, that would be great. Thank you so much. And as we took the avocados, they proceeded to explain the story of their avocado tree. Evidently, what happened was 7 years prior, they had purchased a small avocado tree sapling. And they like to work in their yard. They find it therapeutic. They enjoy being outside. And so they were very, very excited about growing their avocado tree to eventually bear fruit. Well, that was a 7-year odyssey. And after 7 years, the avocado tree had grown to more than 20 feet, and it had not borne fruit at all. And it was getting to the point where it was overshadowing some of their other landscaping. And so they were considering cutting it down. And then they said, all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, after 7 years, this tree started bearing fruit. It's avocados and more avocados and more avocados. They gave them to their family. They gave them to their friends. And then they started giving them to their neighbors, us. And it was such an interesting story to think about that avocado tree. And I think there's really 2 lessons to end off with today. The first lesson would be, sometimes in life we work and we work and we work and we work, and we simply don't get to where we want to be as quick as we would like. And yet just know that all of that hard work and that watering and that nurturing and that fertilization will eventually pay off over time. And the second thing to leave you with is that you should never consider cutting down the tree on your own personal growth too soon. Because at some point, whether it be 7 years or beyond, at some point, things are going to happen. And that avocado tree in your life is going to bear fruit.
Be healthy in a hurry with mind, body, and nutrition.